Welcome back to 744 Ostrom. I'm here with my fellow basketball beat writer, Brett LoGiurato, and we're just here to break down Syracuse's Tuesday matchup in New York City against Michigan State and wrap up Saturday's contest inside the Carrier Dome against NC State. So, first off, Brett, obviously defense was key in the game against North Carolina State. Everyone's been talking a little bit about the shooting woes of the Syracuse team, but how big was the defense on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean it was huge during the same or a similar stretch. In the last 6:43 of the game, Syracuse didn't score a single field goal. They got all their points from the free throw line, and during that same period and even extended to the last 9:40 plus of the game, SU did not allow or only allowed 3 NC State points, and it was obviously it was huge down the stretch. Jim Boeheim switched to a press for a little bit there, created some turnovers, got SU back in the game from what was a 6-point deficit, and it really jump started the Orange's late run there.
Yeah, Syracuse obviously wasn't able to completely neutralize NC State. They were able to shut down Scott Wood, who was really hurting them with the three-pointers. But you mentioned the turnovers. The turnovers were big. NC State shooting percentage is very similar in both halves, but how big were those turnovers in this game?
Oh yeah, they were huge. I mean, and you mentioned Wood too, and just a little more on that. Boeheim and numerous players told me after the game that Syracuse actually switched to it was more of a 3-2 zone, and they were shading more and cheating more up on him just to not let him get a shot off. And the turnover margin, to answer that question, it was huge as well, especially when SU wasn't shooting very well once again from the field. Just 5 turnovers I think was their lowest since 2006 against Notre Dame. So it was obviously when you have 5 turnovers, you have a very good chance of winning the game, and when you create 19 turnovers, you have a plus 14 margin. It's likely the game's going to come out in your favor.
And, once again, Syracuse struggled shooting the ball in the second half, and as you mentioned, those turnovers that they were able to create ended up, being very big in this game. Looking forward to Michigan State Tuesday. Is Syracuse are they going to be able to get by doing what they've been doing, or is there something that they need to do differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on it a little bit, but I think it all starts with their shooting, and to beat Michigan State, who is easily the best opponent SU has faced all season to this point, they're going to have to be nearly perfect, and that starts with shooting, which has been far from perfect this season. It's been a far cry from last season. Jim Boeheim's still talking about last season's shooters, talking about Andy Routins, talking about Wes Johnson, and no one really has stepped up to the challenge and taken on that shooter's role. One guy is Scoop Jardine. He's really struggled and just with his jump shots, from that game against Detroit, I guess, and he really took too many shots on Saturday, and just no one from Chris Joseph, from Brendan Trish, even from Deion Waiters, off the bench, no one's really giving SU that shooter's touch, and no one has stepped up in that shooter's role. So I think that's the number one concern heading into Michigan State.
Obviously Syracuse has been able to get by with against some of these other teams. Shooting the ball so. They're, obviously, as you mentioned, just not shooting the ball quite as well as they were last season. But they still have the unblemished record heading into Michigan State. Is that something that you think that they absolutely need to do in order to win that game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they have to shoot better. They have to. Their defense has been very, very good so far, and I think that'll continue. But one thing that has to come is the shooting, and I don't think SU can win against teams like Michigan State, against Big East teams when they're only shooting in the 30s. I just think someone has to step up, whether it be someone who's currently playing a lot, whether it be someone like Mookie Jones. I don't know what he has to do to show he can get playing time, but he's a guy that has shown he can shoot the ball. So it's got to come from somewhere in order to beat these teams like Michigan State, like Big East teams.
So Looking forward to Tuesday night. How do you see the game playing out?
I see SU's first loss of the season. I don't think it's all gonna. I think it's still too early, and I think it's not all gonna just click just like that and come together really quickly. SU is really they're kind of we talked about this. It's a weird 8-0 start to the season because they're undefeated, but I don't see anything that is really deserving of them being a top 10 team at this point. And they might even move up tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not they're even ranked, maybe even in the top 5. And at that point, you really have to wonder, why is this team ranked top 5? But Michigan State is definitely the toughest opponent they have faced to this point. And I don't see SU coming out on top. I think it's going to take some time for it to all click and come together. And I see Syracuse's first loss in the Garden on Tuesday night.
Obviously some of the wins that Syracuse has had early on have been against ACC and Big Ten schools and teams that are just not quite on Michigan State's level. Obviously, as you mentioned. I do think I do agree with you on that. I think that it'll be tough for Syracuse to win the way they have been playing, and I think that they would have to play a near perfect game in order to pull that off Tuesday. So that's it for this edition of On the Beat. Check back with DailyOrange.com for game updates and our post game coverage from Saturday's NC State game. Also, a little bit of a preview for the Michigan State game in Tuesday's newspaper. So for Brett, signing off.